Hello, welcome back to another pen talk. Thanks for tuning in. I just want to eliminate any suspense and let you know exactly what we're looking at in this video. Yes, it's a 456, the PENBBS vacuum fill model. It's a 16, which is transparent, which is also called glass in some of the other models. It has different translations. And it has its silver tone, and it has a fine nib, the standard fine nib, but it is a two-tone nib. The rest of the trim on the pen is silver. So the pen comes in a standard PENBBS box, so no reason to show that to you, but here's the pen as received. Well, I've added a part already. You'll see that later. But I just wanted to let you peruse this pen, admire the glass crystal nature of this machined acrylic. So a beautiful nib shows through, and this has multiple thread connections, so as you unscrew it and screw it in, if you're obsessive about it, you can have that nib end up in a different spot. There it is behind the clip, which if you're into symmetry, that might be the place you want it. But, you know, most of us aren't going to pay attention when we screw the cap on, and it'll show up in different spots. But this is extremely well done. Feels good in the hand. Anybody who's ever written with this that I've given it to them to write with have been wow. So it's great, and let you visually appreciate it. As you can see, there's no distortion as I twirl it around. That's a really good indication of how optically clear this resin is and how good the machining is, that doesn't provide any distortion other than what you get from the curvatures. Here we have my latest 456 taken apart, as much as I'll take it apart before I ink it up. The two-tone nib was easy to pull out. I had flushed it and it was wet, so I think sometimes any type of liquid in the feed lubricates it enough to make it easier to pull out, but not 100%. There still are some that I can't take out even when they're wet. We have a combination of sun and LED light, so you can make out some really nice detail in this feed, which works quite well. Not something I could tell by just looking at it. And the nib collar that everything fits into, and there's two O-rings on all of the nib collars that PENBBS makes, one at the bottom here and one at the top. And to me, that seals it up. So when we do ink up this pen, we'll see how much ink actually gets into the section. There's a nice O-ring here at the top to keep ink into the barrel, and obviously I will silicone grease all of these, both the O-ring and the threads. I just find this acrylic, which they call glass, to be very, very nice. No imperfections, excellent machining. I'm awaiting delivery of the 355, which is the draw filler, or is that the right word? Bulk filler is what I'm looking for. But, you know, nice, you know, going to unscrew that by accident. Comes up, you know, everything moves very well. You can see that design at the inside of that blind cap. I'm certain there's ways of taking these apart, but I'm not going to worry about it. I mean, you can see the flat spots on these threads that you could use to unscrew this and remove the assembly, which is all you'll probably ever need to do at some point in time. And the cap is also extremely nice and well done. There's that internal ledge where the diameter decreases, so when the pen is capped, that end of the section fits up against that ledge and provides you with a nice small airtight place for the nib to stay when you're not writing. Yeah, beautiful solid crystal cap. You can see that screws in place, so the clip which is very functional, and a lot of people really like this kind of sword design. I find it excellent. It's simplistic and functional, which to me is one of the things that PENBBS is known for, and it's nice to see them continue to follow that with their different models. And they make slight changes here and there. I really think it's excellent for this metal ring to be at the bottom of the cap and extend beyond the plastic in the cap. You know, the excellent engineering, you're not going to split this. I mean, if you do, then you're doing something wrong. That's my personal opinion. So I haven't decided. Obviously, we're going to write with the original nib and maybe swap it out, but who knows. Later. I've inserted the nib into this assembly, so I wanted to show you it just slips in. There's no keying or anything, so you can slip it in any location. But what PENBBS has done is there's a little recess here for the nib to fit in. So the nib only fits one place on the feed. And let's make certain we'll straighten that up. And that end of the feed goes through that section there, and that's what lets all the ink go into the nib, and also all the ink that you'd use to fill gets pulled up through that. One of the challenges I've had with some of these two-tone nibs is they've been very dry. So I looked at the slit, and the slit looks pretty good, but what I've done with other ones is I've used feeler gauges to open up that slit, but we're going to ink it up and see how it writes before we make any changes to it. We can admire this beautiful two-tone nib that PENBBS is putting in these higher-end models. You may say, Chris, you have more than the clear 456, and I go, yes, I do. This is the glow-in-the-dark model, which I'm on the fence about, so I haven't inked it up, haven't done anything with it. Here's the summer one because I just love that blue stripes in the acrylic. And this is the Dawn one, which I've had one of my first ones. Been inked up since day one, inked up with the same ink. Enjoy writing with it in every condition, every occasion. Travels well. It's a great design pen. You may say there's one missing, and yes, there is. The vermouth one is missing. It is now in a new home and is getting attention from another owner, so that's really good. I appreciate that. And the vermouth one seems to have disappeared, which these things seem to disappear. The Dawn one and this glow-in-the-dark one will give you that number, seem to be the more available colors. The summer and the clear, not quite available vermouth, like I said, has disappeared, and I'm certain there's other colors that I didn't even know that they made the 456 in that are now no longer available. They may show up in limited quantities, who knows, but that's the nature of PENBBS. You may also ask, how does the 456 compare to the other PENBBS models? So I brought out my other two clear ones, the 16 SFs, the 308, the 323. Here's a 469 in this beautiful blue swirl. The 469 is larger by every extent, but the 456 comes in a close second. The 308 I still think is the classic shape and design, and I think it's very ergonomic. It writes well, it posts well. It's a do-everything pen. You can eyedropper it, etc. And the 323 is just nice and funky. I call it a writer's pen. Sits on the desk. Fits well in your hand, very ergonomic. So there's how they compare. So how does the 456 compare to other pens? Well, we got our Pelikan M800. We got a 78G, and we got a Metropolitan. So obviously the 800 is probably a more similar size to compare it to, but it's actually a little bit shorter than the 456. Let's take a look at the business ends. Posted 456 and the 800 are almost identical in length. And obviously the 78G and the Metropolitan are in a different league, but I just have them there for comparisons because most people might have one or both pens. As we zero in on the business end, the end that really has probably one of the largest impacts on our writing experience is the nib in the section. The PENBBS number 6 nib really kind of holds its own against the Pelikan M800. Two-tone, Certainly not quite as ornate, but it's in the ballpark. It doesn't have a pelican on it, but it does have PENBBS. Has the founding date of 2005. I think it's when they first started making inks. PENBBS has been around for a long time as a bulletin board system. And these more or less number 5 nibs show up certainly a lot smaller. This Metropolitan has a small section, so does a 78G. And the M800 section is a little bit wider, but shorter than the 456 section. But I find both of them to be very comfortable. In fact, if I'm going to be write for a long period of time, I find the M800 to be a little bit too big for me. One of the reasons why an M1000 has not been on my wish list, and of course price is another thing. And also, you know, I'm comfortable with the 800. I'd probably rather get one of the more interesting 600 variants than go to the M1000. Always an interesting question with a new pen, especially if you have a few inks and some new inks that you've just gotten in, what to put in the pen. I've decided on this one. I recently got 4 new bottles of PENBBS ink. I basically selected the most interesting ones that I thought from what was available. I bought them on eBay. They were about 12 bucks a bottle delivered. Took about 3 or 4 weeks to get here, but they did, and now I'm going to explore them. Mentha aquatica, interesting name. Kind of an interesting green. Kind of a little bit of a teal there, a little bit of blue there. So let's take a look at the chromatography. So here's the chromatography on a chromatography paper. So you can see the yellow and the blue, which is what I would expect to see in something that's put a little bit different light on it. Something that's a green. A lot of times you see a solid green, but here you do see the color separation of those two colors. And that certainly is an intense, nice, bright blue at the very top. Here's a bottle. Very pretty design. I'm certain there's some significance to it, but it escapes me. Maybe that's a plant that's Mentha aquatica or aquatica. I have it set up here so we can see how the Vac-filler works for those that may not have seen the original video. So what we do is we just unscrew this blind cap. When you have it all the way screwed down, it seals the section so you don't get any ink leakage. It's good on an airplane. You pull this all the way up. You insert the nib into the ink. I do it halfway up the section. And then you push the plunger down in one complete motion and it pulls up ink. Beautiful, simple design, and it works well. So we're going to work with that fill, which is about halfway, but we can get more. And I didn't do my TWSBI filling system that I was supposed to do, but so what I've done is I pulled the plunger down. We're going to see if this pulls up a little bit more ink now. Nah, it's a little bit more. That's going to be good enough for me. And I apologize. I'm going to use the Vac-filler system next time and see if I can get a fuller fill. This pen posts well and deeply. It really feels good in the hand, good balance. Excellent writer as all the PENBBS pens are, because they're designed by people that like to write. That shows in every pen. This nib is dry, too dry for me. I've had this before on some other ones, 469s more than anything, which also have a two-tone nib in it, but my other 456s have been good. So I'm not happy with this one. Yeah, that looks like it's a better amount of ink, but you got to put pressure on it to get any ink flow. If you don't put pressure on it, you get that, which is not much of an ink flow. So this is the Dawn one, which has been inked up for a long time. Yeah, maybe almost a month. It does have Monteverde ink in it, which is a different ink than the PENBBS ink, but as you can look at this one, this is a beautiful nib. I love this nib. And the green one that I had also had a similar nib in it. In fact, even felt better. So we're going to work on that nib, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do, and hopefully we can get it to work better, to lay down more ink without needing pressure, which is what this one does. And then if you put pressure on it, you just get a little bit more flow. As you can see up here, I put enough pressure on it to spread the tines, which is a lot more than I should have to get the flow. We're going to use these feeler gauges to open up the tines and hopefully get more flow. At a pen show, when I used to adjust nibs with, and so I went on Amazon, I found a set for under 10 bucks. These were used a lot in the old days with cars where you had to adjust points and plugs and use them in daily maintenance. So they're not as popular now where everything's been digitized and electronic, but they do serve their purpose and they're still around. So I'm going to probably start with a 0.06 millimeter just to see how it fits in between the tines. And this is not the easiest thing to do over the camera, but basically you just put it into in between the tines, and you can see it moves up and down relatively easily. You know, some people use brass shims for this, but brass shim is just one thickness. So that, it works fine, 0.06. So now we're going to go up one more level. To 0.08. And we're going to do the same thing. It's a little bit tighter, you can feel it. But hopefully what it's doing is it's actually doing a little bit of opening of those tines. And since I've done this before with other PENBBS nibs, I know how far I want to go. So we're going to go up another one to, nope, not 0.25. I got the wrong one there. For those of you that work over the camera, I'm certain I have your sympathy. For the other ones, you're probably saying, why is it so difficult to do? But trust me, it is. So we're going to use the 0.10 millimeter and see how that fits in between the tines. This is definitely tighter, but it's working. So before I go to the next one, which I plan to go to, but I want to see how much this may have helped with the flow. Okay, it's better. I think you can see that immediately. And that's what I expect. But we're going to go one step further because I like it a little wetter. So we're going to go to 0.13, which is as big as I've gone to in the past. And this doesn't fit, so we're going to stick with the 10, but it now has better flow. It's still a little bit more sensitive to angle, so we're going to do a little bit of micromesh. At a pen show, Indie Pen Dance was selling these. You get like 3 of them for $5 or something. They're just emery boards, that's what I call them, but they're nail polishing boards. The pink is the most aggressive. The white is medium, and if you flip them over on the other side, this is more or less the polishing side, or the real fine micro mesh. Maybe it's 1200 if you're going to put a grid on it. You know, this may be 600 and this may be 900, something like that. As you can see, one of these I've used a lot, and it works fine. So we're just going to start with the very fine polishing side, and I just do figure eights, put a little bit of pressure on it. I'll also do the reverse side since people like that, and my phone's dinging, so I don't know what's going on, but it happens occasionally. So usually the first time you put it in, it doesn't write. It takes a while. Maybe there's a little bit of grit or something in there, but this is definitely smoother. But it's a really fine line, which some people really like, but I like it a little bit better. So what I would probably do over time is probably put a different nib in here. But I'm going to write with this one for a while. I enjoy this PENBBS ink. You know, it's nice, but because it's on the light side and it looks like it's a little bit of a dry ink, this may not be the best combo for this pen, but I'm going to give it more try. But at least I'm happier with the ink flow now and how it feels on paper. So let's rate this pen. I'm going to give it a 9.1. I've rated the other 4, 5, 6s higher, but with this nib I can't go higher than 9.1, and that's more or less based on the potential of the pen, how well it's made, you know, and the fact that it's just a solid, feels very good in the hand writing instrument. So hopefully you've enjoyed this little look and this little ability of trying to get a pen to work the way I like it to work. So thank you for watching. May you have many great, exceptional, phenomenal writing experiences. Explore this great global community that we are in. And put some ink on paper, no matter what device you use, no matter what instrument you use. That's really the focus from my perspective. So we've reached the end of this video, and as you can see, the pen is working better, so I'm getting happier with it. So bye for now. Until the next video, have a great day, have a great life. Yep, a little bit wetter, which is what I like.